My grandson, John, looked at the table and murmured softly, "The fork is missing." At such a casual remark, my daughter Mia reacted, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get it ready right away." As I was about to get the fork, John said loudly, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dad. I'll take the punishment today. So, don't do it for Mom." Punishment? What on earth was John talking about? I couldn't understand what he said. But both Mia and John seemed tense and rigid. Punishment? Don't worry about it, John. It was Grandma who forgot to put out the fork. John looked at me, then shifted his gaze to my daughter's husband, Christopher. Come on, John. What are you talking about? Christopher was clearly disturbed. I began to realize the unease I had been feeling. Both Mia and John seemed incredibly tense when speaking with Christopher. Mia used to talk joyfully with him when they got married, but now it was Christopher who dominated the conversations. Come on, Mia, say something. Christopher was panicking. And surely, everyone at the dining table felt the heavy atmosphere. But no one tried to change it. Christopher, care to explain? Finally, my husband Paul spoke up. He seemed to have noticed something as well. Despite his gentle nature, at this moment, he was as angry as I've never seen him before. His hands were trembling as he placed his clenched fists on the table after taking a deep breath. My name is Madison. I live with my husband and daughter. I married Paul, a coworker, and we had Mia soon after. There was a time I debated quitting my job, but Paul supported my desire to continue working. Since Mia's birth, we've shared household chores and childcare, supporting each other through life. According to my husband, whoever is free should do the housework. He took care of cleaning, laundry, and cooking more than I ever expected. When Mia was small and sick, forcing me to miss work, we took turns taking paid leave so the burden wouldn't fall solely on me. We don't adhere to traditional roles of dad or mom. We work for Mia and our family, cherishing the days we spend together. Now Mia has grown up and turned 25 this year. It seems she has someone special at work and plans to bring him over soon. My husband says, "It's too early." But I got married at Mia's current age. He becomes tongue-tied when we talk about those days. Later, Mia brought home a man named Christopher, a pleasant young man with a clear voice. My husband seemed to like him immediately. Christopher, drink more. Encouraging him to drink more. Dad, Christopher isn't much of a drinker. It's okay, Mia. I'm happy. I got to properly greet Mia's precious parents, so this is nothing. Christopher seemed slightly drunk, slurring his speech but responding well. Watching their interaction, I thought. Honestly, it's unlikely such a fine young man would be left alone by other women. Working has allowed me to interact with many young people. While I can't say this about everyone, the men who seem like good young men are usually popular. From a parent's perspective, Mia is quite beautiful. But I wanted to know why he chose Mia. Christopher, don't push yourself. This guy is just a bit sad about Mia leaving home. He's just trying to drown his sorrows in alcohol. My husband muttered in a low voice. Be quiet. As if sulking like a child. With Christopher slightly drunk, I decided to ask him directly. So, Christopher, you seem popular. What made you choose our Mia? In a soft voice, Christopher said. Well, I'm not popular. Then he laughed and shared how he got to know Mia. Christopher and Mia started their careers together, training in the same team. They hit it off during that time, and after training, Christopher was assigned to the headquarters in Boston, while Mia was placed in a local branch, but they kept in touch and supported each other. Occasionally, Christopher would visit Mia's branch on business trips, and they would have meals together. One time, I made a mistake at work. Anyone could have just offered comfort, but... Christopher continued, while covering the now sleeping husband with a blanket, looking at Mia. Mia laughed it off. Despite the significant loss, she said, "What's done is done. I even thought about taking your position for you," Mia said with a laugh. It wasn't the time to be down. She made me feel like I could turn things around. I was drawn to Mia's positive and bold attitude before I knew it. Mia has a tomboyish side, like me. As a mom, I wished she had been a bit more ladylike, but I'm glad someone appreciated her for who she is. I thought we were just good friends, Mia said, her ears turning red. Not just from the alcohol, surely. Yes, they seem like a perfect match. I want to laugh at myself for doubting Christopher before. He was genuinely smitten with Mia, uninterested in other women who came his way. Mia was focused on work, not interested in romance, but she was won over by his persistent pursuit. Thus, they started dating, and when Mia got an offer to transfer to the Boston headquarters, Christopher proposed. They decided to continue working while married after discussing it together. Their mutual trust was evident. When the story of how they met had finished, the husband finally woke up. "What were you talking about?" he asked with a sleepy voice. He couldn't have been actually asleep. I have a knack for seeing through my husband's true feelings. He must have been pretending to sleep to listen in. Secret! While trying to keep calm, Mia, with her ears turning red, and Christopher, both blushing with embarrassed smiles, were watched by the husband with a feigned clueless expression. I looked on at the three of them fondly. Christopher's parents also took a liking to Mia, and their marriage was happily decided. After that, busy days of meeting both families and the wedding passed quickly. After the marriage, Mia, who had been working in Boston, decided to quit her job unexpectedly when she got pregnant. She had been so dedicated to her work and had just transferred to the Boston headquarters, which she had always wanted. I was worried if something had happened, but I'm not as skilled as Mom, so I lost confidence in balancing work and raising a child. Plus, I don't want to half-ass both, you know? Mia convinced herself, which made me realize I shouldn't interfere too much. Perhaps it was Christopher's parents' wish as well. Still, my husband and I talked about supporting our daughter, who decided to focus on her family and child. Grandson John was born a month after Mia quit her job. Mia had worked up until her due date, being encouraged by her boss to take maternity and parental leave as late as possible, but she firmly decided to quit. She must have been determined to focus solely on child-rearing. Her visits to our place became more frequent after quitting her job. Yet, her expression was not as bright as before. The distance from Boston to our home wasn't that far. I suggested to Mia to come back and give birth here, but she firmly declined. Was she always this stubborn? I felt something was off, but respected Mia's wish, thinking it might be the emotional instability pregnant women often experience. Thus, Mia gave birth to John at a hospital near their home. Both my husband and I, and Christopher's parents, were overjoyed at the birth of our first grandchild. After John was born, they used to bring him to see us once a month, but gradually those visits became less frequent. It was either New Year's or the summer holiday, wondering if we would see them even once a year, but I was still happy. Even if we couldn't meet, Mia's messages kept us updated on John's growth. My husband and I were still working, but seeing John's photos sent in those messages gave us the strength to keep going. When we could meet, we would spoil John by shopping for toys together or going out to eat. "Don't spoil John too much, Dad and Mom," Mia would say, but she was smiling. "Spoiling them is the grandparents' role," I said, and we all laughed. Those moments were blissful. Then, in the summer when John turned 4, that blissful time of mine came crashing down. That day, Mia's family had returned home for the first time in a year. This year, since Christopher was working during Christmas, he took paid leave for a long-awaited homecoming. I beamed at John's growth. John was always polite. For a 4-year-old boy, he could be more active, but even now, he sat quietly next to Mia. "John, you can relax a bit more," I said, but "It's okay, Grandma." He smiled and replied. Mia looked at John with a gentle gaze. Come to think of it, Mia hasn't been talking much. Even so, you've raised him so well. I was worried when Mia decided to quit her job, but seeing John's growth, that decision might not have been wrong. I spoke to Mia. Mia looked at me with a happy yet somewhat sad expression. Is she not feeling well about it internally? That's right, Mom. Suddenly, Christopher eagerly responded in place of Mia. It was me who asked Mia to quit her job, so John turned out to be such a good boy. I felt something was off. Was it Christopher's wish for Mia to quit her job? But, first they had decided to continue working when they got married, hadn't they? Maybe their thoughts changed after having a child. Well, I wish he could be a bit more mischievous for a boy. My husband also seemed to have something on his mind, similar to mine. It's okay, isn't it? John is smart and kind. I raised him, so he's got a good core. Mia hurriedly tried to end the conversation in a somewhat panicked manner. Christopher listened to this exchange without a smile. Only the sound of a news program from the TV could be heard in the silent living room. To change the atmosphere, I deliberately raised my voice and said, "Well, shall we start preparing for dinner? Mia, could you help me out a bit?" Being alone with my daughter might prompt her to open up. With that hope, I invited Mia to the kitchen. So, we're having steak today, John's favorite. I started speaking as if nothing was wrong, keeping my unease to myself. Mia prepared efficiently. You never did much cooking when you were at home, did you? I laughed, but Mia did not take her eyes off the meat. Having raised Mia while both of us were working, we never had the chance to cook together in the kitchen like this. Mia often came home late from cram school or club activities during middle and high school, and she started part-time jobs when she became a university student, so she was rarely home. I think I made her feel lonely. That's why I thought she chose to quit her job and stay home for John, but from what Christopher said earlier, it seemed not to be the case. I stopped my hands, turned towards Mia, and asked, Hey, Mia. Is there something you want to talk about? Mia stopped moving. After a moment of silence, she also looked into my eyes. Well, Mom. And started to say. It seemed she was struggling to find the next words, maybe hesitating about something. Just as I was about to speak, the beer's run out. Dad said to go get some. John came into the kitchen. Mia snapped back to reality, took a can of beer from the fridge, and handed it to John. Good job, John. Well done. I praised John, and he smiled and returned to the living room. Really, for being only 4 years old, he's already so helpful. I was impressed, but Mia's expression turned sad again. Is something wrong? I tried to ask again, but this time Mia laughed and said, It's nothing. Just a bit tired from the move today. I'm fine, really. She replied cheerfully, but it seemed somewhat forced. Still, Mia acted brightly, so I couldn't press further. The dinner preparations were completed, and we moved the dishes from the kitchen to the dining table. The men were drinking beer in the living room, carefree. My husband would help when it was just the two of us, but in times like these, it couldn't be helped. After arranging the dishes, side plates, drinks, and glasses on the table, All right, dinner's ready. Please, everyone, take a seat. I called out. Wow, this looks delicious. As expected. Christopher praised the meal with a happy face. Not what the thing. It could just be polite, but I couldn't accept it straightforwardly. Unaware of my feelings, Christopher was the first to take his seat, and John tried to sit next to him. However, looking at the table, John muttered quietly, "There's no fork." Mia reacted to this seemingly trivial remark. "Oh? Sorry. I'll get it ready right away." As I was about to get the fork, John said loudly, I'm sorry, Dad. I'll take today's punishment. So please, not Mom." Punishment? What was John talking about? I couldn't understand. But both Mia and John looked tense, their bodies stiff. Punishment? There's no need for that. It's Grandma who forgot to put out the fork, so John, you don't have to worry. John looked at me, then his gaze shifted to Christopher. No way, John. What are you talking about? Christopher was clearly upset. I began to realize the source of the unease I had been feeling. Both Mia and John seemed incredibly tense when speaking with Christopher. Mia used to talk happily when they got married, but now it was Christopher talking at her. Come on, Mia, say something. Christopher was panicking. And surely, everyone realized the heaviness at the dining table. But no one tried to change the atmosphere. Christopher, can you explain what's going on? Eventually, my husband spoke up. He seemed to have noticed something too. Though he's usually gentle, at this moment, he was angrier than I'd ever seen him. While taking a deep breath, his clenched fist rested on the table, trembling. Christopher remained silent, not saying anything. No matter how much my husband pressed, Christopher wouldn't open his mouth. He just stared at the table. This was getting nowhere. I decided to ask Mia and John about it. What does punishment mean? Is it a usual thing? Mia didn't respond, but John slowly nodded as if he had made up his mind. Usually, Mom, when Dad. John started to speak slowly. The things John recounted were unbelievable. If Mia tried to enjoy household chores even a little, she would be berated or hit. If he didn't like dinner, he'd throw it in the sink and go out to eat alone. If Mia wasn't awake waiting when he came home late, he would scold her severely. Just listening made my heart feel like it was going to burst. I've seen Mom being treated like that since I was little. Lately, if I don't do things properly, Mom gets scolded for my mistakes too. John was being so mature to prevent Mia from getting scolded because of him. I'll be 5 soon, so I thought maybe I could start protecting Mom. So, the punishment should be mine. John. Did Mia realize how John felt? She started crying, unable to speak. Is what you're saying true? My husband raised his voice and confronted Christopher. But Christopher wouldn't even look at us. He just sat there, head bowed. I've had enough. Finally, Mia opened up about everything. Things were fine when they first got married, but Christopher's attitude changed gradually. The moment Mia's pregnancy was confirmed, he pressed her to quit her job, and when he realized Mia wouldn't easily agree, he went ahead and informed her workplace about her resignation without her consent. Mia, hearing about this from others, tried to discuss it with him, but you've got no choice but to quit your job. He refused even to talk about it. The emotional instability and physical discomfort of pregnancy compounded, and Mia chose to resign. She had planned to work until the last month, but was met with constant sarcasm from Christopher during that time. He never once showed concern for her condition during or after the pregnancy. He didn't help with childcare at all, sometimes leaving the house at night because of the baby's crying and not returning. As John grew older, the treatment towards Mia worsened. Mia endured any punishment to protect John, but why didn't you talk to us? I was filled with regret. I had thought my daughter had found her happiness and was leading a good life. If only I had noticed sooner. I thought it would be okay as long as I endured it. Mia continued in a frail voice. She had thought about divorce many times, but was worried about how John would feel without a father. Plus, Christopher's parents were unaware of their son's actions and were kind to both Mia and John. She thought enduring it would keep everyone else happy. But as John grew, Christopher's punishments began to extend to him too. I can endure a lot, but I can't stand him laying a hand on John. John quietly stayed close to Mia. With a voice filled with suppressed anger, my husband asked Christopher again. Christopher, I'll ask you one more time. Is what Mia and John are saying true? Christopher had been looking down, but eventually, he looked up, showing a sarcastic smile as he answered. Yeah, that's right. All because your daughter disrespected me. The once good young man now didn't show any trace of that goodness. How much can a person's expression change? Christopher seemed to be jealous of Mia's adeptness. After getting married and transferring to the Boston head office, Mia was prepared a position higher than Christopher's. Without making any mistakes and being recognized by her boss, Mia became a central figure in her department. Though Christopher was in a different department, being married made the comparisons between them more frequent. People say the wife is better at her job. Aren't you under her thumb at home too? Such comments became unbearable for Christopher. He was overjoyed when he found out about Mia's pregnancy, not so much because they were having a child, but probably because this meant they wouldn't be compared anymore. By keeping Mia away from work and focused on housework and childcare, he seemed to take out his frustration on her for any small mistake. Even as Mia flawlessly managed household and childcare tasks, Christopher would not come home, wandering around instead, and was harsh to Mia when he was at home. It's just taking out your frustrations. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Christopher laughed as if possessed. I don't find it amusing to have a woman who's better than me. Women should be more weak, a bit clueless is better. Mia, as if something clicked. You're having an affair, aren't you? She stated with conviction. She's way better than someone like you. Christopher continued to laugh carelessly. Get out. Leave this house right now. My husband must have wanted to yell and hit him. But he restrained those feelings, gritting his teeth and glaring at Christopher. Stay away from Mia and John from now on. The divorce proceedings will go through a lawyer. To those words, Christopher. Yeah. I'm better off. Such a strong-willed woman and a child who only looks to others for cues. Waving his hand without any apology, Christopher left our home. As Christopher left, Mia, crying. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. And sorry, John. She apologized. It's not your fault, Mia. I'm sorry I didn't notice sooner. Mom, as long as you're not hurt, that's all that matters to me. We comforted each other, blaming ourselves. A few days later, Mia and John moved from Boston. Their belongings were minimal. Christopher had refused to let them take anything necessary for their life. Thus, the divorce mediation began. He initially showed up to the mediation with a carefree face, but his complexion worsened over time. It was clear that he was at fault for his treatment of Mia and John, neglecting childcare, and being seen with another woman at our house. Without much resistance, the divorce mediation concluded smoothly. Christopher probably wanted to be rid of Mia and John before things got complicated. Though he had to pay compensation and child support, he complied smoothly. But he never apologized until the end. Later, Christopher was fired from his job. He hadn't informed his company about the divorce, but Mia's former boss witnessed him being friendly with another woman inside the company. After the former boss contacted Mia and her superiors learned of the divorce, it was reported to the executive director. The woman Christopher was involved with turned out to be the executive's daughter. Summoned by the executive, Christopher insisted there was no problem as he was divorced. But he was the one who had been deceived. He said he was breaking up with his wife and forced me. She was telling this to her father. She had a fiancé, and Christopher was just a fling. In the end, it seems he was forced to resign abruptly due to the accusations of infidelity during his marriage. Since then, he has become estranged from his family home, chased by the demands for compensation and child support, and now he's living in extreme poverty. Mia has changed her phone, so contact is not possible, and any calls to our house are handled by my husband. The reason he doesn't persistently follow us is thanks to mine and my husband's profession. We were both police officers. Christopher knows this, so he cannot act boldly. Since then, Mia and John have started living in our home. Mia, using her old job connections, has found new employment and is working hard. John quickly adapted to the new environment and made many friends at his transferred preschool. Like a boy of his age, he comes home covered in mud every day, to Mia's dismay. I quit my job, which I was proud of, to protect Mia and John. Not knowing when Christopher might barge in. Every time I remember that incident, I'm filled with regret. I decided I didn't want to go through that again. I am determined to protect my own happiness and my family's happiness. Dinner's ready. I call out to everyone. John, Mia, and my husband each take their place at the table. Let's eat, we say, joining hands, and share the events of our day. Yes, I am determined to protect this happiness.